Joining me now, former senior advisor to President Bush and Fox News contributor, Karl Rove. Karl, good morning to you.
Morning.
Which part of this story should we pick apart first? Did the Jen Psaki part, walking back and saying that it's a challenge, not a crisis, after she finally acknowledged it? Or the fact that Department of Homeland Security going to head down to El Paso today, this late in the game, to finally see what happens? They're controlling the messaging and the access to see what's happening down there to the media, Karl. What do you think they're going to say about it publicly?
Well, they're going to say we got some challenges, but it's under control, and it's not under control. And you touched on three things I want to come back to. First is, yes, they're trying to control the message by not giving out any information. They've told the regional press operators for the department not to answer any questions, but refer everything to Washington so it can be buried. And they're not allowing ride-ons. They're not allowing the press into the facilities. They want to dampen down the flow of information in order to keep us from understanding how bad it is. Second thing is that they have not, think about this. A year ago, there were 37,000 people apprehended at the border. Last month, they put out this number about March 10th, 100,000.
Yeah.
And today we learned in Politico that of those, they released 28,000 people into the American society. We're on our way to have 1 million apprehensions at the border in this fiscal year. They're saying it's going to be the biggest year in 20 years. And if the current pattern continues, 280,000 of those people are going to be released into the United States. And they're going to be released on their own recognizance, taken to a bus station, dropped off in the middle of El Paso or Brownsville or Harlingen or McAllen, and poof, they're off into the American society, and they're never going to be seen again.
Right.
So,
and Karl, we also have to add in those are the apprehensions. That's not accounting for the people who legitimately get through and are not apprehended either.
Right. That's correct. That's correct. Now, the legislation that was passed, the Dreamers has long been there's a potential for significant bipartisan agreement. These are people who are brought here as children, know no other country than the United States of America, and this would allow them to remain in the United States and continue their lives here, because they don't know, many of them have no memory whatsoever of wherever they came from. And there's a big bipartisan support for it. But in the bill that was moved, they included also a green card option within 3 years for people who have what are called temporary protective status. There are 300,000 of those people in America, and they get a green card within 3 years under this bill, which means they will become citizens long before somebody who's been standing patiently in line. Rather than making those people go to the back of the line, or even putting it in a separate bill, making it a straight-up Dreamers Act, they had to add that in, which makes it difficult to gain the kind of big bipartisan support that the Dreamers bill should have.
Spell it out for me, the long-term implications of this, what the administration is trying to accomplish, and essentially the fact that, they're burying their head in the sand regarding what's actually happening down there is to further the agenda.
Yeah, look, if you want, I'm a strong supporter of comprehensive immigration reform. Immigration is good for the country, but you cannot have public confidence in immigration and cannot have confidence enough to get a comprehensive bill through unless you secure the borders. If you don't secure the borders, whatever bill you pass, whatever laws you put in place are meaningless. And this administration, from the very start, has taken a very strong stand against border security. We're not going to build the wall. Don't come now, but come later. We're gonna stop focusing on being so hard on people who are trying to come here. And the message has been magnified by the cartels and the coyotes. Come to the United States, because now the open door is there, and you can walk right in. And as a result, we have what we have on the border, a crisis. Think about it. We have almost 2.5 times as many people who are trying to come to the United States in the first 5 months of this fiscal year as last year, and we aren't at the peak period. The peak period for transit across the border is going to be April, May, and June.
That's a great point.
And even the administration admits that we've got a record number of people trying to get across the border.
And that's just the main issue is people coming across, but you also have the drug trafficking, the human trafficking, the crime that's associated with it as well. Karl, while we have you, I want to talk about this. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg will testify in front of the House next week on the Biden infrastructure bill. This as President Biden considers an income tax hike for households making more than $400,000 a year to help pay for it. And Karl, I just want to underscore the fact that when he was in campaigning, we've got multiple sound bites of him saying, if you make less than $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up. And he was speaking about individuals there. And now he's saying combined incomes, families will reach that threshold.
Oh, yeah. Look, if you're going to pay for they're talking about a $2 trillion infrastructure bill, you cannot get that kind of money just by taxing people who make more than $400,000 a year. They're talking about a corporate tax rate. Who pays the corporate tax rate? We know that. Economists tell us it is primarily the people who work for those firms that pay that corporate tax rate in the form of lower compensation, and the customers of those firms who pay for it in form of higher prices. And a lot of those people who work for those firms make less than $400,000, and a lot of people who buy the products of those companies make less than $400,000. So let's not kid ourselves. They're going to try and raise taxes, and they're going to try and raise them big time. And look for other measures that are going to be in that infrastructure bill. I bet you a dime to a dollar they put a very strong provision in there that most of those jobs, if not all of those infrastructure jobs, need to be, quote, union contracts. And so that rather than being in right-to-work states and being able to use a non-union labor, you're going to be, I think there's going to be a very strong preference in there for union workforces.
James Freeman.
Yeah, hey, Karl. I think people are starting to figure out that, hey, good morning, that the taxes are going to hit more people than advertised, and it's going to be inefficient. But I'm wondering how much infrastructure that we need we're actually going to get. We think of that Obama-Biden 2009 stimulus, talked a lot about infrastructure. To be kind, it was maybe 10% of that bill. Obviously, they don't like infrastructure when it comes to oil and gas pipelines. I mean, what are you expecting here in terms of stuff we actually need?
Well, I'm with you. I mean, remember all those promises of shovel-ready jobs that they had to later admit weren't really shovel-ready and weren't jobs. And so, yeah, we're likely to have that again this time around. I think they're going to use infrastructure to really mean, quote, clean energy or green jobs. So, we're going to have more things like Solyndra, where the government bets money, our money, on highly dubious technology that doesn't work out. But yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be shovel the money out. I mean, I love it. They're very clear about it now. Their object is to blow up government on a permanent basis. I mean, let's shovel a bunch of money into the education system, shovel a bunch of money into child care, and what's the object? To keep those things going. Use the crisis in the moment to justify big expansions of the government, and I think we'll see the same in an infrastructure bill with a lot of special privileges, particularly for Green New Deal projects, and it ain't going to be a pretty sight. I also am not certain it's going to pass, because all you're going to need is one or two or three Democrats in the Senate to say, I got real indigestion about some of these provisions. And if we've learned anything in the last couple of months from the Biden administration, is they will overreach. Yeah. They think they've got the ability to take a left-wing agenda and shove it down the throat of the country, and I think we're going to see that when they come up with their infrastructure bill. And
Karl, Mitch McConnell called them out on it, basically saying that these bills are Trojan horses. They're called one thing, and then they're burying a million other things in them. The $1.9 trillion coronavirus stimulus package is an example. But we are out of time. Great to see you this morning. Thanks for bringing the whiteboard.
You bet, Jackie, and great to see Freeman on.
Oh, always great to have him. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Exactly.
Wow, thanks.
Thank you.